The notification pinged at 2 a.m., a sharp sound that sliced through the silence of my Seattle apartment. I jolted upright, heart racing, half expecting an emergency, but it was just my phone glowing with a message from an unknown number. "He's falling for you, dude. Keep it slow." My roommate, Eli, was sprawled across the couch, snoring softly, oblivious to the chaos that single text unleashed in my mind. I'm Theo Navarro, 25, a graphic designer scraping by in a city where coffee costs more than my hourly wage. I'm Puerto Rican, raised in a loud, loving family in Miami before chasing dreams out west. Eli Carter, my roommate, is 26, a barista with a knack for charming everyone except me, or so I thought. He's blonde, lanky, with a crooked smile that makes people tip extra at the cafe. We'd been sharing this cramped Capitol Hill apartment for 6 months, splitting rent and takeout, our lives tangled in the mundane. Dishes, laundry, late-night Netflix binges. But that text? It was a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew about him. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. The group chat it came from had 6 other numbers, none of which I recognized. The thread was titled Operation Win Theo's Heart, and the messages stretched back weeks, weeks of Eli's friends plotting, advising, and cheering him on. "Ask him about his art," one said. "Cook him that pasta he likes," another urged. My stomach twisted. Every late-night conversation, every small gesture, Eli grabbing my favorite coffee blend, asking about my sketches, lingering a little too long when we brushed past each other in the kitchen, had been orchestrated. A slow, deliberate seduction I hadn't even noticed. I should have been angry. I should have stormed over to the couch and demanded answers. But instead, I kept scrolling, my face warm, my pulse unsteady. There was something disarming about it. Eli, the guy who burned toast and tripped over his own shoes, had been trying to woo me with the help of a secret council of matchmakers. It was absurd. It was kind of sweet. And it forced me to confront a truth I'd buried under layers of denial. I'd been falling for him, too. The next morning, Eli was in the kitchen, humming off-key as he brewed coffee. His hair was a mess, his t-shirt wrinkled, and he looked so effortlessly himself that I almost forgot the group chat. Almost. "Morning, Theo," he said, flashing that crooked smile. "You want some of this? It's that dark roast you like." His voice was casual, but I caught the flicker of nervousness in his eyes, like he was waiting for me to say something profound. "Yeah, sure," I mumbled, taking the mug. Our fingers brushed, and I swear the air crackled. I wanted to ask about the chat, to call him out, but my throat tightened. What if this was all a game? What if I'd misread everything? Instead, I sat at the counter, sipping coffee that tasted like betrayal and possibility, watching him chop vegetables for breakfast with a focus that felt too intentional. "So," he said, not looking up, "you were up late last night. Everything okay?" His tone was light, but there was an edge to it, like he knew I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. I froze. Did he know I'd seen the chat? Had someone tipped him off? My mind raced, but I played it cool. Just work stuff. Deadlines. I forced a smile, but my heart was hammering. This was no longer just about sharing an apartment. This was a game of trust, and I wasn't sure who was playing who. Over the next few days, I became hyper-aware of Eli. Every glance, every casual touch, every accidental moment felt like a chess move. He'd leave notes on the fridge. "Theo, saved you the last slice of pizza." And I'd wonder if it was his idea or a suggestion from the chat. I started noticing patterns. The way he'd linger after we watched a movie. The way he'd ask about my day with a sincerity that made my chest ache. But the chat loomed over everything, a shadow I couldn't shake. Who were these people? Why were they so invested in us? And why hadn't Eli just told me how he felt? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. We were on the balcony, the city lights sprawling below us, the air cool and sharp. Eli was leaning against the railing, talking about some customer at the cafe who'd tipped him in quarters. I interrupted him mid-sentence. Eli, why do you keep doing this? He blinked, caught off guard. Doing what? This. I gestured vaguely between us. The coffee, the notes, the everything. What's your deal? His face flushed, and for a moment, he looked like a deer in headlights. I like hanging out with you, Theo. You're cool. He stumbled over the words, and I could almost hear the group chat whispering in the background. Don't screw this up, man. I wanted to push harder, to demand the truth, but something in his eyes stopped me. There was a vulnerability there, raw and unguarded, that made me pause. Maybe he wasn't ready to confess. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear it. So I let it go, but the tension between us grew, a silent current pulling us closer and pushing us apart. By the end of the week, I'd started texting back in the group chat, pretending I was one of Eli's friends. I didn't know what I was doing, spying, maybe, or trying to understand him. The chat was a mix of encouragement and chaos. He smiled when you mentioned his dog. Progress. And dude, don't wear that flannel again, it's cursed. I learned their names, Jasper, Mia, Sam, and others, all part of Eli's tight-knit crew from college. They were rooting for him, for us, and it made my heart ache in a way I couldn't explain. But the deeper I dug, the more questions I had. Why the secrecy? Why not just tell me? And why did I care so much? I wasn't out to anyone except my sister back in Miami. I'd spent years convincing myself I didn't have time for relationships, that I was fine alone. But Eli was unraveling that lie, one careful step at a time. The group chat became my obsession. Every night, after Eli went to bed, I'd scroll through the messages, piecing together the puzzle of his feelings. Jasper, the ringleader, was relentless. Eli, you gotta make a move soon. Theo's not clueless. Mia chimed in with emojis and gifs, urging Eli to be bold but not weird. Sam, the practical one, sent links to articles like 10 Ways to Flirt Without Being Obvious. It was like watching a rom-com unfold in real time, except I was both the audience and the love interest. I started testing Eli, dropping hints to see how he'd react. One morning, I accidentally left my sketchbook open on the counter, a drawing of him mid-laugh, his eyes crinkled in that way that made my stomach flip. He noticed it while pouring coffee, his face turning pink. This is wow, Theo. You drew me. His voice was soft, almost reverent, and I shrugged like it was no big deal, but inside, I was screaming. Yeah, just practicing, I said, watching him closely. He lingered on the sketch, his fingers tracing the edges of the page, and I wondered if he was thinking about the chat's advice. Show interest in his art. It's his thing. The tension between us was unbearable now, a tightrope we both walked without acknowledging. I wanted to confront him, to ask why he needed a group chat to say what he felt, but I was scared. Scared of rejection, scared of ruining what we had, scared of admitting I was falling for him, too. So I kept playing along, texting in the chat as unknown, feeding them vague updates. He seemed happy today. Keep it up. It felt wrong, but it also felt like the only way to stay close to him without risking everything. One evening, Eli suggested we go to a local art fair in Fremont. I thought you'd like it, he said, scratching the back of his neck, a nervous habit I'd started to notice. You're always sketching, so he trailed off, and I could almost hear the group chat cheering him on. The fair was a maze of colorful booths, street musicians, and the smell of fried food. Eli stayed close, his shoulder brushing mine as we wandered. At one booth, a vendor was selling handmade journals, and Eli picked one up, flipping through the pages. This would be perfect for your sketches, he said, holding it out to me. His eyes were bright, hopeful, and I felt a pang of guilt for spying on the chat. Thanks, I said, taking the journal. Our hands touched, and neither of us pulled away. For a moment, The world shrank to just us, the noise of the fair fading into the background. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in my throat. That night, back at the apartment, I found a new message in the chat. Eli, you nailed it at the fair. He's totally into you. My heart sank. Had I been that obvious? Or was Eli reporting back every detail of our day? I felt exposed, like my feelings were being dissected by strangers. But then I saw Eli's reply. I don't know, guys. I'm scared I'm reading this wrong. What if he doesn't feel the same? Those words hit me like a punch. Eli was just as terrified as I was, just as unsure. The group chat wasn't a game. It was his safety net, a way to navigate something he didn't know how to do alone. I wanted to tell him I felt the same, that I'd been falling for him since the day he burned that toast and laughed it off, but fear kept me silent. The next day, I decided to take a risk. I invited Eli to a rooftop bar in Belltown, claiming I needed a break from work. Really, I wanted to see if I could push him to confess. The bar was crowded, the city skyline glittering below us, and Eli looked nervous, fidgeting with his drink. You okay? I asked, leaning closer. Yeah, just thinking, he said, his voice barely audible over the music. Theo, can I ask you something? My heart stopped. This was it. He was going to say it. But before he could, my phone buzzed with a new message from the chat. Tonight's the night, Eli. Tell him. I froze, the moment shattered. Eli noticed my expression and frowned. What's wrong? Nothing. I lied, shoving my phone in my pocket. But the damage was done. The chat had invaded our moment, and I couldn't unsee it. I spent the rest of the night dodging his questions, my mind a mess of anger and longing. I stopped responding in the group chat after that night. It felt like a betrayal, not just of Eli but of myself. I was falling for him, hard, but the chat made it feel like our connection wasn't real, like every moment was scripted. I needed space to figure out what I felt, but living with Eli made that impossible. He was everywhere. His laugh, his coffee, his stupid flannel shirts hanging on the back of the couch. Eli sensed something was off. He started leaving me more notes, cooking dinner, asking if I wanted to watch a movie. Each gesture was a knife twist, a reminder of the chat's instructions. I wanted to believe he cared, but doubt gnawed at me. What was real? What was just him following orders? One afternoon, I came home to find Eli sitting on the couch, his phone in his lap, his face pale. Theo, we need to talk, he said, his voice shaking. My stomach dropped. Had he figured out I'd seen the chat? Was he about to confess everything? Okay, I said, sitting across from him, my heart pounding. He took a deep breath. I like you. Really like you. And I've been trying to figure out how to tell you, but I'm terrified I'm messing this up. His words were raw, unpolished, nothing like the polished advice in the chat. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I don't know if you feel the same, but I had to say it. I stared at him, my mind racing. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, but the chat loomed over it like a storm cloud. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Why all the games? His brow furrowed. Games? What are you talking about? I couldn't hold it in anymore. I pulled out my phone and showed him the chat, the messages, the plans. His face went from confusion to horror. Theo, how did you? He trailed off, his hands shaking. I didn't mean for you to see this. So it's true. I asked, my voice breaking. You've been playing me this whole time? No, he said, standing up. It's not like that. The chat, it was just my friends trying to help. I was too scared to tell you how I felt, so they gave me advice. But everything I did, the coffee, the fair, the notes, that was me. I meant all of it. I wanted to believe him, but the hurt was too raw. You should have just told me, Eli. Instead, I feel like an idiot, like I was some project. You're not a project, he said, his voice cracking. You're your everything. I've been falling for you since the day we moved in together. The chat was just me being a coward. We stood there, the silence heavy, the air thick with everything unsaid. I wanted to forgive him, to pull him close and tell him I felt the same, but the betrayal stung. I turned and walked to my room, shutting the door behind me. For the next week, we barely spoke. Eli tried, leaving coffee, knocking on my door, but I kept my distance. I needed time to process, to untangle my feelings. But the more I pushed him away, the more I missed him. His laugh, his warmth, the way he made our tiny apartment feel like home. One night, I found a letter slipped under my door. It was from Eli, handwritten, the ink smudged in places like he'd agonized over every word. Theo, I'm sorry. I messed up. I should have been honest from the start. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that every moment with you was real. I love you. I read it over and over, my heart aching. He loved me. Not the chat, not his friends, him. And I loved him, too, despite everything. But could I trust him? Could I trust myself? I didn't sleep that night. Eli's letter lay on my bedside table. Its words burned into my mind. I wanted to run to him, to tell him I felt the same, but fear held me back. What if this was another mistake? What if I was just chasing a feeling that wasn't real? The next morning, I found Eli in the kitchen, his eyes red, like he hadn't slept either. Theo, he said, his voice soft, can we talk? I nodded, my throat tight. We sat at the counter, the same place where we'd shared coffee and jokes, now heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. I'm sorry, he said again. I should have told you how I felt from the start. The chat, it was stupid. I was scared you'd reject me, and I didn't know how to do this alone. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the boy who'd burned toast, who'd laughed with me during late-night movies, who'd carried my heart without me realizing. Why me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He smiled, that crooked smile that undid me every time. Because you're you, Theo. You're kind and talented, and you make this place feel like home. I've never felt this way about anyone. His words broke something in me, the wall I'd built to protect myself. I reached for his hand, my fingers trembling. I love you too, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. But I'm scared, Eli. I don't know how to do this either. He squeezed my hand, his eyes shining. Then we'll figure it out together. We sat there, hands clasped, the city waking up outside our window. It wasn't perfect. There were still questions, still trust to rebuild. But in that moment, it was enough. We were enough. Over the next few weeks, we took it slow, real slow, not group chat slow. We went on actual dates, no scripts, no plans. We talked about our fears, our dreams, our pasts. I told him about Miami, about my family, about the years I'd spent hiding who I was. He told me about growing up in a small town, about coming out to his friends, about the courage it took to move to Seattle and start over. One night, we were on the balcony again, the city lights brighter than ever. Eli pulled out his phone and deleted the group chat right in front of me. No more secrets, he said, tossing the phone onto the table. Then he kissed me, soft and sure, and it felt like the start of something real. Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy, complicated, full of mistakes and second chances. But it was ours. And as we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, being honest, and choosing each other every single day.